Welcome to the Shadow of History channel. Be sure to subscribe so that you don't miss out more videos like this one. In September 1951, near Hengju, a young Korean girl carries her brother past a stalled M-26 tank. Their exhausted faces revealing the heavy toll war has taken on innocent children caught in conflict's relentless path. Just days after Nazi forces occupied France, Adolf Hitler and his entourage strolled near the iconic Eiffel Tower on June 23, 1940, marking one of history's darkest moments as Paris fell under German control. The ancient city of Nagasaki endured unimaginable destruction as an atomic bomb descended upon Japan, forever changing warfare and leaving scars that would echo through generations across the entire world. Otto Frank returned to the Amsterdam attic in 1960, where his family hid from Nazi persecution, standing alone as the sole survivor, while memories of his daughter, Anne, and lost loved ones surrounded him. Lillian Boyer's life transformed in 1921 when restaurant customers invited the adventurous waitress to experience flight, launching her unexpected journey into the thrilling world of early aviation and daring wing-walking performances. Tsar Nicholas II accidentally captured what resembles a modern selfie, likely reviewing his camera when it unexpectedly triggered, creating an unintentionally candid moment frozen in time from Imperial Russia's final years. Photographers captured the Chernobyl disaster's earliest known image on April 26, 1986, just moments after Unit 4's catastrophic meltdown and explosion sent radioactive materials into the atmosphere, beginning history's worst nuclear accident. Belgian coal miners crammed, and into a cramped elevator around 1900, ascending from underground darkness after grueling shifts, their faces revealing the physical exhaustion and harsh conditions defining industrial-era labor. At Chicago's Harold Washington Library Center, 58,307 dog tags commemorate every American soldier who sacrificed their lives during the devastating years of the Vietnam War conflict. Time stopped at exactly 8:15 in the morning when atomic fire consumed Hiroshima in August 1945. This recovered watch forever marking the precise moment thousands of lives were instantly erased. George McLaurin sat isolated from white classmates at the University of Oklahoma in 1948, becoming the institution's first African-American student while segregation's cruel. Barriers remained painfully visible despite his historic admission. These wedding rings, stripped from Holocaust victims by Nazi forces, represent thousands of marriages, families and futures destroyed as gold was salvaged from the dead with cold efficiency and cruelty. Dorothy Counts endured cruel mockery and harassment from white male classmates as she bravely walked through hostile crowds, becoming the first black student attending an all-white American school. At a 1992 Ku Klux Klan rally protest in Gainesville, Georgia, a child dressed in Klan robes stood face-to-face with a black state trooper, creating a powerful, unsettling image of America's ongoing racial tensions. An emaciated prisoner stares from behind barbed wire at the Rab concentration camp, his hollow eyes and skeletal frame bearing witness to the systematic starvation and dehumanization inflicted by fascist forces. Liberation arrived at Ebensee concentration camp in 1945, revealing survivors reduced to living skeletons, their haunting gazes confronting the world with undeniable evidence of Nazi Germany's horrific crimes against humanity. Standing in West Berlin, a woman raises her hands toward the infamous wall after waiting 3 hours, desperately hoping to glimpse her friends and relatives trapped on the eastern side. Scientists assembled the gadget in 1945, humanity's first atomic bomb, a technological achievement that would demonstrate unprecedented destructive power, and forever alter global politics, warfare, and international relations throughout history. Harold Edgerton's revolutionary Rapidtronic camera captured a nuclear detonation's initial millisecond during the 1950s, freezing the fireball's formation at 100 millionth of a second, revealing atomic energy's terrifying beauty. 20,000 Americans gathered at Madison Square Garden in 1939 for a massive Nazi rally demonstrating how fascist ideology had disturbingly penetrated American society during the years preceding World War II. French nurses crouched in protective bomb trenches positioned between hospital wards in 1918, caring for wounded soldiers while shells exploded overhead during the Great War's brutal final battles across France. The legendary Moulin Rouge in Paris captured in 1914, standing as the city's vibrant entertainment heart. Just before World War I would transform Europe and silence the music echoing through its storied halls. Jimmy Walker, serving as New York City's 97th mayor, relaxed alongside members of the Blackfeet Nation tribe in 1927, bridging vastly different American worlds during the Roaring Twenties' fascinating era. A courageous journalist photographed notorious mobsters during Al Capone's sensational 1931 trial, risking serious consequences to document organized crime's most infamous figures facing justice in packed Chicago courtrooms. Racing driver Joachim Bonnier loved his BRMV 12-powered McLaren M5A so much after placing 6th at the 1968 Italian Grand Prix, he literally mounted the magnificent machine on his wall as automotive art. During the 1987-88 Washington Bullets seasoned 7'7" Manute Bol and 5'3" Muggsy Bogues became teammates, creating basketball's most visually striking height contrast ever photographed on professional courts. Marlene Dietrich defied social conventions by arriving in Paris wearing pants in 1933 after being explicitly told not to, boldly challenging gender norms and demonstrating her refusal to conform to restrictive expectations. As Soviet forces closed in on Berlin during 1945, dedicated zookeepers temporarily sheltered a rare shoebill stork in their own home, protecting precious animals amidst the Third Reich's violent collapse. Jimi Hendrix commanded the stage at Bakersfield, California's Civic Auditorium in 1968, captured by photographer Ron Raffaelli during one of the legendary guitarist's electrifying performances that redefined modern rock music. In 1948, Hunterian museum attendants carefully packed 3,000 human skulls stored at Lincoln's Inn Fields in London, including remains of Chinese pirates, Inuit, and Maori people, before transferring them elsewhere. 2 women posed playfully at the beach in Atlantic City, New Jersey back in 1897, their vintage bathing costumes and flirtatious stance capturing seaside fun during the Victorian era's surprisingly spirited summer traditions. Pascal Seba photographed models wearing traditional Halep province clothing from the Ottoman Empire in 1873, documenting Aleppo's rich cultural heritage through carefully composed studio portraits that preserved historical dress. A British Army officer traveled through Sierra Leone's challenging terrain around 1920, carried in a hammock by local bearers illustrating colonial-era transportation methods across West Africa's demanding landscapes and climates. President John F. Kennedy celebrated Halloween with his delighted children in the Oval Office on October 31, 1963, sharing precious family moments just weeks before his tragic assassination shocked America. Chicago police arrested these women on July 12, 1922, for defying municipal ordinances by wearing abbreviated bathing suits on public beaches as authorities attempted controlling women's fashion choices and bodily autonomy. Devastating fires raged across Brooklyn during New York's catastrophic 1977 blackout, set by looters as the city descended into chaos with police arresting 3,000 suspects while firefighters battled blazes throughout darkness. Dr. Fukushi Katsunari examined preserved Japanese tattoos at Tokyo University's Medical Pathology Museum in 1983, continuing his father's groundbreaking work, maintaining the world's only collection of tattooed human skin specimens. This 1926 photograph from Leningrad's 15th Regional Party Conference shows how Stalin systematically erased fallen comrades from official images, with Antipov, Kirov, Shvernik, and Komarov gradually disappearing as they lost favor. French wrestler Maurice Tillet, whose distinctive features inspired Shrek's animated character design, posed alongside stunning supermodel Dorian Leigh in 1945, creating an unexpectedly poignant and historically fascinating photograph. France's last épée duel occurred in 1967 when Marseille's mayor faced the Socialist Party's presidential candidate, ending centuries of aristocratic tradition with this surprisingly modern confrontation between political rivals. When Albert Einstein met Charlie Chaplin in 1931, they exchanged profound observations about fame, with Einstein praising Chaplin's universal art, while Chaplin noted Einstein's paradoxical celebrity despite widespread public incomprehension. Women's fashion pushed boundaries during the 1950s as these daring necklines demonstrated challenging conservative social norms, while designers experimented with increasingly bold styles that scandalized traditionalists yet captivated younger generations. Basketball legend Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, photographed with coach John Wooden in 1969, then reunited 38 years later, their enduring friendship transcending sports to demonstrate mentorship's lasting impact across generations. Billy and Benny McCrary earned recognition as the world's heaviest twins in 1978, weighing 742 and 723 pounds respectively, with 84-inch waists that astounded medical professionals. Robert F. Kennedy stopped at a West Virginia drive-in restaurant in Bluefield during 1960, campaigning tirelessly for his brother John's presidential nomination while connecting with everyday Americans across the heartland. Nurses presented newborn triplets to their overwhelmed father at a New York hospital in 1946, capturing post-war America's baby boom era when multiple births created joyful chaos for unsuspecting families everywhere. A determined pig unexpectedly photobombed Grandma's wedding portrait in 1927, charging through the formal ceremony and creating an accidentally hilarious moment that would entertain family members for generations to come. Young women embraced freedom and fun during the roaring 1920s, their carefree attitudes and modern fashions representing the decade's revolutionary social changes as traditional Victorian constraints finally loosened considerably. NFL legend Lyle Alzado confidently declared during the 1970s that if he and King Kong entered an alley together, only one would emerge victorious, and it definitely wouldn't be the monkey. This awkwardly composed 1909 family portrait captures early photography's stiff formality, with subjects frozen in uncomfortable poses as primitive cameras required long exposure, times that tested everyone's patience significantly. Child star Shirley Temple stood beside a painted portrait of her younger self in 1945, creating a surreal double image that reflected Hollywood's strange relationship with childhood fame and nostalgia. Chief John Smith, an Ojibwe elder from Minnesota's Cass Lake area, died in 1922 at the alleged remarkable age of 137 years, though historians debate the accuracy of his extraordinary longevity. This surprisingly risque joke appeared during the 1940s, demonstrating that wartime humor often pushed social boundaries further than peacetime audiences might expect, revealing unexpected boldness beneath that era's conservative surface. Victorian strongwoman Lavery Cooper, known as Chamian, challenged gender norms in 1897 with her powerful physique, which scandalized our morality censors, who deemed her muscular female form absolutely disgusting and inappropriate. An unknown woman stood dangerously close to a massive tornado in 1989 to capture this photograph, demonstrating either remarkable courage or questionable judgment, while nature's fury swirled ominously nearby. John D. Rockefeller, celebrating his 84th birthday in 1929, gifted a 5-cent coin to a child, the industrialist's gesture reflecting his famous frugality despite being America's wealthiest man. McDonald's menu from 1973 displayed remarkably affordable prices compared to today's costs, with hamburgers, fries, and shakes available for pennies, reminding customers how dramatically inflation has transformed fast food economics. A street vendor sold fresh clams in New York's notorious Mulberry Bend neighborhood around 1900, serving immigrant communities with affordable food amidst the crowded, impoverished conditions defining tenement district life. Scientists discovered Dima, a remarkably preserved 7-month-old woolly mammoth in northeastern Siberia during 1977, the baby having died approximately 40,000 years ago before freezing in ancient permafrost conditions. Construction workers labored high above the East River on Brooklyn Bridge in 1920, performing dangerous maintenance tasks on the iconic suspension structure that connected Manhattan and Brooklyn across treacherous waters. McDonald's operated a modern-day care center in 1976, offering child care services within the restaurant, reflecting corporate America's experimental. The efforts addressing working parents' needs during that transformative decade. An American fighter ace posed beside his plane in Tunisia during 1943, swastika symbols painted on the fuselage proudly documenting each enemy aircraft he successfully shot down throughout the North African campaign. Master escape artist Houdini stood at Boston's Harvard Bridge Edge in 1908, preparing to leap into the water before 20,000 spectators emerging 40 seconds later with all shackles miraculously open. 2 children admired their Christmas tree in Washington, D.C. During 1920, this photograph capturing how American families celebrated the holiday season 103 years ago with simpler decorations and timeless wonder. A mother helped her young son address a troublesome loose tooth back in 1897, this tender moment demonstrating that despite vast technological changes, fundamental childhood experiences remain remarkably consistent across centuries. 2 Hopi women posed for this photograph on their Arizona reservation in 1901, their traditional hairstyles and dress, preserved through early documentation of Native American cultures facing increasing external pressures. Muhammad Ali and Joe Frazier exchanged fierce words before their legendary 1971 fight of the century, with Ali claiming divinity, while Frazier ominously warned God had chosen the wrong place that historic night. An Ojibwe man demonstrated traditional spearfishing techniques in Minnesota during 1908, practicing sustainable harvesting methods his ancestors had perfected over countless generations across the region's abundant lakes and rivers. Theoretical physicist Stephen Hawking posed with his wife Jane during the late 1960s, years before ALS would severely restrict his movement, yet before his groundbreaking discoveries would revolutionize cosmology forever. Comedian John Candy photographed young Conan O'Brien while Conan served as his Harvard University tour guide in 1984, advising the future talk show host that comedy isn't something you try, you simply do it or you don't. African American boys dressed in their finest. Clothes celebrated Easter morning in Chicago's South Side neighborhood during April 1941, their pride and joy visible despite the segregation and discrimination defining that era. Astronaut Bruce McCandless II floated freely in space during 1984 without any safety tether connecting him to his spacecraft, becoming the first human to experience completely untethered spacewalking in Earth's orbit. 10 distinguished chiefs gathered for this remarkable 1891 portrait, including Standing Bull Bear, who looks back running, and Eagle Pipe, their powerful presence representing Native American leadership during reservation-era struggles. Robert Cornelius created history's first selfie in 1839, sitting motionless for 15 minutes before his handmade camera constructed from opera glass and a copper sheet's pioneering photographic self-portraiture's entire future. A roller skating woman glided alongside excited children in 1971, her fashionable athletic style embodying the decade's recreational fitness trends as Americans increasingly embraced outdoor activities and casual sports culture. Actor Robert Redford stood beside a massive grizzly bear during filming of Jeremiah Johnson, which audiences voted the best mountain movie ever in 1972, capturing the American frontier's wild spirit and danger. British comedian Rowan Atkinson posed with his stunning 1981 Aston Martin Vantage V8 in London during 1984 years before his Mr. Bean character would bring him international fame and fortune beyond imagination. The Lorain, Ohio Public Library's head librarian surveyed 50,000 books scattered everywhere after one falling shelf triggered a catastrophic domino effect throughout the entire building back in 1971. Ukrainian, American, and Russian presidents signed the Budapest Memorandum in 1994, with Ukraine surrendering its nuclear arsenal in exchange for security guarantees that would later prove tragically insufficient and ultimately meaningless. Children wore disturbingly crude and homemade Halloween costumes during the 1930s, their unsettling masks and outfits creating nightmare fuel that makes modern horror decorations seem tame by direct comparison. 15-year-old Priscilla Beaulieu carefully wrote a letter to her 25-year-old boyfriend Elvis Presley in 1960, their controversial age gap relationship beginning while Elvis served in the U.S. Army stationed in Germany. A coal miner's child attended grade school in La Junior, Harlan County, Kentucky during 1946, poverty and hardship evident despite educational opportunities reflecting Appalachia's ongoing struggles throughout the post-war era. The Chicago North Shore rail accident between Harrison Street and Wabash Avenue in 1953 created devastating destruction, twisted metal, and debris, revealing the catastrophic collision's terrible force and tragic human cost. Sign painters carefully reproduced a model's likeness on a massive New York City billboard advertising Peter Pan bras in 1947, while photographer Stanley Kubrick, before his filmmaking fame, documented the fascinating process. During demonstrations at Checkpoint Charlie in 1986, a West Berlin, photographer boldly kicked a policeman standing across the border in East Berlin, photographer Roland Holschneider capturing this symbolic act of defiance. Marilyn Monroe performed for thousands of American troops in Korea during 1954, the Hollywood icon's visit, boosting morale as soldiers fighting far from home witnessed her legendary beauty and charisma firsthand. A German academic fencer wore his protective mesh mask during the early 1900s, preparing for traditional Menser dueling, where intentional facial scars proved courage and honor among university fraternity members across Germany. President William McKinley arrived at Buffalo, New York's Temple of Music in 1901, just hours before anarchist Leon Czolgosz shot him twice, beginning the 8-day ordeal, ending in America's third presidential assassination. Berlin's children discovered abandoned weapons scattered across their devastated streets in 1945, transforming deadly military equipment into toys amidst the rubble as Germany's defeat left dangerous remnants of war everywhere. Madame de Courcelles made history as Paris's first female licensed taxi driver in 1909, her qualifications extending to both motorized vehicles and traditional horse-drawn cabs during the city's transportation transition era. Young Drew Barrymore lit Stephen King's cigarette at the main premiere of Firestarter in 1984, the child star and horror master sharing an unexpectedly casual moment that captured Hollywood's peculiar relationships. Elvis Presley celebrated his 23rd birthday at Graceland in Massachusetts in 1958 by posing with 8-year-old Mary Kozlowski, the March of Dimes poster girl on his staircase, demonstrating the king's charitable spirit. A blind man carried his companion with dwarfism and paralysis through Damascus, Syria. In 1889, Italian photographer Tancred Dumas, capturing their remarkable partnership where each compensated for the other's challenges. An American World War I veteran practiced welding at Walter Reed Army Hospital around 1919. His prosthetic arm fitted with specialized tool adaptations that allowed him to work despite war's devastating injuries. A passionate math teacher explained surfing's physics to students at Dana Hills High School in Southern California during the 1970s, merging academic concepts with the region's legendary beach culture perfectly. This Swedish couple created a remarkably modern-looking selfie using a stick in 1934, proving that humanity's desire to photograph ourselves predates smartphones and social media by many decades. Robert De Niro relaxed with director Martin Scorsese on the Cape Fear set in 1991. Photographer Philip V. Caruso, documenting their legendary creative partnership during production of the psychological thriller. Loggers posed proudly beside the massive tree they painstakingly cut down by hand in 1902 photographer Darius Kinsey, preserving the dangerous backbreaking labor that defined the Pacific Northwest's timber industry. Long before founding Motorhead and becoming a rock legend, young Lemmy Kilmister posed for this photograph. During the 1960s, his rebellious spirit already visible in his intense expression and attitude. Mexican revolutionary leader Emiliano Zapata stood for this powerful portrait around 1911 in Cuernavaca, Mexico, his commanding presence embodying the peasant uprising that would reshape the nation's history forever. Hollywood special effects director John P. Fulton waded through a filming tank in 1956, carefully positioning a large sailing ship model while photographer Alan Grant documented the behind-the-scenes movie magic. Brazil's Pelé and England's Bobby Moore exchanged jerseys after their 1970 FIFA World Cup match at Estadio Jalisco in Guadalajara, Mexico. Photographer John Varley capturing this iconic moment of mutual respect. Mariel Bush and Ruth Neuer wore war surplus gas capes on November 20th, 1953, attempting to protect themselves from Philadelphia's choking smog and smoke that blanketed the city for 2 consecutive days. A test pilot demonstrated the Hoppycopter, around 1950 Seattle inventor Horace Pentecost's personal backpack helicopter with contra-rotating rotors that achieved a flight but proved impossibly difficult to control safely. Energetic teenagers demonstrated their latest dance moves during a London ballroom party in 1959, their enthusiastic styles reflecting the era's youthful rebellion and rock and roll's transformative cultural influence across Britain. Single mother Irmelien Indenbirken posed with her infant son Leonardo DiCaprio in their Los Angeles home during 1975, decades before he would become one of Hollywood's most acclaimed and recognizable actors. Mary Pickford, affectionately known as America's Sweetheart, posed for this stunning photograph in 1916, her beauty and talent making her silent film's biggest star and Hollywood's first female millionaire. Workers drained and cleaned a Venice canal in 1956 using Decauville railway tracks and 2 camels for hauling debris, creating an absurd yet practical scene in Italy's legendary floating city. The Yakima Indian Tribal Council chief visited his son training with an Army armored unit at Washington's Yakima Firing Center in 1954, bridging traditional Native American life and modern military service. 22-year-old Pen Ha goes a tribeswoman photographed in Brazil's Amazon rainforest during 1997, represented indigenous communities facing increasing threats from deforestation development and encroaching modern civilization pressures. Robert McGee displayed the horrific scars from being scalped by Sioux Indians during his childhood, photographed in 1890 after surviving the traumatic attack that claimed many frontier settlers' lives. A father and son playfully goofed off together during the 1910s, their light-hearted moment revealing that despite vastly different times, the bonds between parents and children remain eternally constant. Horse-drawn carriages and pedestrians filled this busy street scene in Dayton, Ohio during 1902, capturing American small-town life before automobiles would revolutionize transportation and transform urban landscapes forever. Citizens crammed into an overcrowded elevator in Gwangju, South Korea during 1984, their patient endurance reflecting the rapid urbanization and population density challenges facing the developing nation's growing cities. Princess Diana glanced back at pursuing paparazzi from her Mercedes on August 31, 1997, just minutes before the E. A devastating crash in Paris's Pont de l'Alma tunnel would tragically end her life. Young Albert Einstein posed with his sister Maria around 1894, years before his revolutionary theories would fundamentally transform humanity's understanding of space-time gravity and the universe's fundamental nature. Hoovervilles emerged across America during the early 1930s as desperate people who lost everything in the Depression constructed makeshift shanties, representing the final step before complete homelessness and destitution. Mount St. Helens' dramatic transformation became evident when comparing photographs from before and after its catastrophic 1980 eruption, which removed 1,300 feet from the mountain's summit and devastated surrounding landscapes. While children confined to iron lung machines awaited relief before the polio vaccine's 1950 development, these claustrophobic devices mechanically breathing for patients whose paralysis prevented their lungs from functioning independently. A mother and baby waved goodbye as they were forcibly sent to an internment camp under Executive Order 9066 in 1942, joining 120,000 Japanese Americans unjustly imprisoned. Arnold Schwarzenegger proudly displayed his new American citizenship certificate in 1983, the Austrian bodybuilder turned actor celebrating his adopted country years before becoming California's governor and an American icon. Brad Pitt and Jennifer Aniston enjoyed a Radiohead concert together in 1998, the Hollywood power couple appearing relaxed and happy. during their relationship's early years before their highly publicized divorce. The typical family computer setup from the early 2000s featured bulky monitors, tangled cables, and desktop towers. This nostalgic scene reminding us how rapidly personal technology has evolved. A determined mother with 6 children aged 2 to 19 traveled from Oklahoma to California in 1939, seeking pea-picking work despite having only an 8th grade education during the Dust Bowl migration. A barefoot boy in worn overalls read intently at his desk in a southeast Missouri farm school during 1938, his focused expression revealing rural children's determination to pursue education despite poverty. An older couple rested on their Tennessee plantation porch at day's end in 1930, their weathered faces and exhausted postures revealing decades of agricultural labor across the American South's challenging landscape. Barefoot children eagerly explored books at a mobile cart, visiting the remote Appalachian Mountains. This traveling library bringing precious educational resources to isolated communities lacking permanent facilities and access. Cowboys gathered around their chuck wagon camp in Texas. During the early 1900s, the portable kitchen serving as the social heart of cattle drives across America's vast open ranges. Cheyenne man-bird wild hog, also known as hedgehog, posed for this powerful 1890 portrait, his traditional appearance documented as Native American cultures faced relentless pressure from westward expansion. 3 skilled. Archers stood poised with their bows in this outdoor photograph. From 1860, their traditional weapons soon to be rendered obsolete by firearms, increasing dominance across warfare and hunting. Fearless construction workers labored at dizzying heights atop New York City's growing skyline in 1925, building the skyscrapers that would define Manhattan's iconic profile without modern safety equipment or regulations. Ray Samuels held the last bottle of Schlitz beer distilled before Prohibition took effect in Chicago. The valuable beverage insured for $25,000 in 1930 as America's alcohol ban began. A woman embraced her adorable pup at a train station during the 1950s, their tender moment captured as American families increasingly traveled by rail during the post-war era's prosperity and mobility. A Florida family headed up north during the Great Depression, their vehicle packed with belongings as they joined millions of Americans desperately migrating in search of work, food, and better opportunities. An Absaroki man sat proudly on horseback in 1908, photographer Edward Curtis documenting Native American equestrian traditions as reservations increasingly restricted indigenous peoples' traditional nomadic lifestyles across the West. An elegant woman relaxed at a Paris cafe with her exotic pet cheetah in 1932, the big cat epitomizing the decade's fascination with unusual fashions, dangerous animals, and shocking public displays. Director Alfred Hitchcock playfully served tea to MGM's famous lion mascot in 1957, the master of suspense demonstrating his characteristic wit while posing with Hollywood's most recognizable studio symbol. A young Irish woman worked at her spinning wheel in 1905, practicing traditional textile crafts that had sustained rural communities for centuries despite industrialization's rapid spread across Europe and America. An immigrant family gazed toward Manhattan from Ellis Island's dock on August 13, 1925, their hopeful expressions reflecting millions of newcomers' dreams as they glimpsed America's promise across the water. Pupils crowded into New York's Essex Market School in a poor quarter. During 1887, the overcrowded classroom conditions revealing urban education's challenges as immigrant children sought opportunities through learning. Children used pulleys to cross a river on their way to school near Modena, Italy. In 1959, their dangerous daily commute, demonstrating rural students' extraordinary determination to receive education. Street musicians performed together in London during 1860, entertaining passers-by while earning modest livings through their talents, a tradition that continues sustaining performers across cities worldwide even today. A woman posed beside her new Raytheon television with rabbit ear antenna in 1949, the cutting-edge technology representing American families' growing fascination with broadcast entertainment entering their living rooms. Conrad Veidt tested an early version of his grotesque makeup for The Man Who Laughs in 1928, his disturbing character design, later inspiring the Joker's appearance in Batman comics. Young Tommy held his shoeshine kit on a New York sidewalk in 1890, the enterprising boy representing thousands of children who worked dangerous street jobs to help their struggling families survive. Before radar technology existed, soldiers used these massive acoustic locators to detect approaching enemy aircraft. The primitive sound, amplifying devices illustrating early 20th century military innovations, creative desperation during wartime. An electric car charged in a New York garage during 1911, proving that battery-powered vehicles actually preceded gasoline's dominance, though infrastructure limitations would delay their eventual widespread adoption by a century. A skilled cowboy demonstrated his expert roping abilities in Oklahoma. During 1906, preserving ranching traditions that were rapidly disappearing as barbed wire fences and mechanization transformed the American West. Mrs. Charles Binning swept the steps of her ramshackle home in Spencer, Iowa's shantytown during 1936, maintaining dignity despite the Great Depression's devastating economic collapse and widespread poverty. Breaker boys worked at Woodward coal mines in Kingston, Pennsylvania. Around 1900, these exploited children manually sorting coal in dangerous conditions before child labor laws finally ended such heartbreaking practices. Fyodor Dostoevsky sat imprisoned in 1874. The legendary Russian novelist's haunting gaze revealing years of suffering that would profoundly influence his greatest literary works, exploring human psychology, morality, and redemption. Margaret Bourke White photographed Gandhi at his spinning wheel in 1946, the peaceful leader demonstrating India's self-reliance movement through traditional cloth production as independence from British colonial rule approached closer. English hospital staff tested protective gas masks designed for babies in 1940, the disturbing yet necessary precaution reflecting Britain's fears of chemical warfare as World War II's devastating bombing campaigns intensified. Jazz legends Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich engaged in an electrifying drum battle at Carnegie Hall. In 1952, their competitive virtuosity thrilling audiences as these two titans demonstrated unmatched rhythmic mastery. General Humberto Delgado campaigned courageously against Portugal's Salazar dictatorship in 1958, his defiant opposition leading to his assassination 7 years later by the regime's brutal political police forces. George Stern demonstrated his revolutionary formula in 1938, the highly volatile fluid vaporizing so rapidly that flames from released gases couldn't burn him, defying conventional expectations about combustion physics. The German Mercedes racing team posed with their magnificent machines in 1908, their pioneering automotive engineering, establishing the foundation for motorsport dominance that would continue inspiring manufacturers for generations. Shut ahead. German forces launched devastating air attacks on Allied invasion forces during Operation Shingle, the amphibious landing at Anzio, Italy on January 22, 1944, creating chaos as explosions erupted across beaches. German and Romanian prisoners of war stood defeated after Stalingrad's encirclement during 1942 to 43, their exhausted faces revealing the catastrophic losses that marked Nazi Germany's first major Eastern Front defeat. German forces established a brothel inside a former synagogue in Brest, France during summer 1940, this desecration symbolizing the Nazis' complete disregard for Jewish sacred spaces throughout occupied territories. German children played with worthless money during hyperinflation's devastating height. In 1923, the Weimar Republic's economic collapse making currency so valueless that cash literally became toys for youngsters. German fraternity members created an early mirror selfie in 1912, their group photograph demonstrating that self-documentation predates modern technology by decades, capturing university camaraderie through innovative reflection techniques. German naval officers and their distinguished visitors posed during the 1893 Columbian Naval Review, the international gathering showcasing maritime power as nations competed for dominance across the world's oceans. German submarine U-848 appeared moments before being sunk in the South Atlantic on November 5, 1943. American aircraft capturing sailors taking cover on the conning tower before all 63 hands perished. Germans, evicted from their Prague homes on Strassmayer Square, waited for deportation to Allied-occupied Germany in 1945, ethnic cleansing following Nazi defeat as retribution swept across liberated Eastern European territories. Grand Central Station bustled with activity during World War II, the iconic New York transportation hub, serving as a vital crossroads where soldiers, civilians, and wartime urgency converged beneath its magnificent architecture. Sunlight streamed through Grand Central Station's towering windows in 1941, illuminating New York's architectural masterpiece as commuters crossed the marble floors beneath the celestial ceiling's painted constellations shining above them. Grocery shopping during the 1960s featured helpful store employees, organized aisles, and modest prices. This nostalgic scene capturing an era when neighborhood markets provided personalized service before superstore chains dominated. Sculptor Gutzen Borglum posed with his model, depicting Mount Rushmore's intended final design, but insufficient funding forced the ambitious carving to end incomplete in October 1941, leaving his vision partially unrealized. H.R. Haldeman President Nixon's former chief of staff was sworn in before the Senate Watergate Committee in 1973, his testimony revealing the corruption scandal that would ultimately destroy Nixon's presidency. Queen Elizabeth II met with Texas Governor Ann Richards during a two-day tour of Texas in May 1991, the British monarch experiencing American hospitality and Lone Star State culture firsthand. Hajj Amin al-Husseini, Palestine's leader before 1947, met with Adolf Hitler during World War II, their controversial alliance revealing complex Middle Eastern politics and anti-British sentiment during the wartime period. A festive Halloween shop on South Howard Street in Baltimore, Maryland, displayed seasonal decorations in 1950, capturing the holiday's growing commercial appeal as Americans embraced spooky traditions with increasing enthusiasm. Santiago Carrillo, Spain's Communist Party leader, shook hands with former Francoist dignitary Ramon Serrano Suñer in 1996, their reconciliation symbolizing Spain's difficult transition from dictatorship toward democratic healing and unity. Students worked diligently inside a modest one-room schoolhouse in Claiborne County, Tennessee. During the 1940s, multiple grade levels learning together as rural education persevered despite limited resources and challenging conditions.